And then you go into the house and you start talking to him. You find out not only does he have a 2-seater car, but he's got a whole motorcycle. But he's got 12 kids. Then you talk to him a little more, you find out he has another baby on the way. Okay, well, they already under financial constraints. They got some financial issues and some financial problems. They really don't know what's going on. Doesn't seem to be that responsible. And then you find out that not only does he have one of his wives pregnant, his third wife is currently pregnant, but he's getting in his car, his luxury car, driving 5 hours away, 300 miles away, so that he can see his girlfriend, who has an additional 3 children. And you say to yourself, this dude is horrible with money. Let's get it. Hey guys, what's going on? This is my take on a reaction of a reaction, I guess you could say. It's like the chain reaction. So, Sara Howe from Reality Squad, good people, by the way. I've done some collaboration with her, both her and Amanda from Reality Amanda. Great time, good folks. Hopefully we'll be doing a lot more stuff in the future. Look for that. It'll be a good time. But Sara had put out a video concerning Gwen accidentally exposes siblings' financial exploitation. I'll leave a link for that video down below. I encourage everybody to watch it. It was excellently done, the way she put a lot of the information together. I wanted to give my take on some of the subject matter that she had talked about, specifically when it comes to union productions versus reality show productions. For the most part, when you're a member of the union, specifically the SAG-AFTRA union, which I, in full disclosure, am a member of, when you have your SAG-AFTRA union card and you participate in SAG-AFTRA productions, a lot of the things that these folks go through, you don't have to deal with, because a lot of these production issues, pricing issues, contractual issues have already been worked out for you. Now, this is not to say that, for instance, I think there was a whole thing with like Taraji P. Henson, who had talked about like her pay scale, what she gets paid for each one of her productions she's in, and she's not happy with her scale, and there's been other people who have been not happy with the money they receive. That's money that they receive above and beyond the union scale. So when you're operating on the union scale, you walk into a movie shoot, you walk into a production, you know at minimum what you're going to be paid. They can't pay you less than a certain amount. Now they can pay you way more. Like there'll be people sitting on that set making, $20 million, $30 million for the project, and there'll be other people not making anywhere near that. That's just the way the business works. But you have certain protections while you sit there on that production. You don't have these protections when you're sitting on a reality show production. You can shoot a reality show and essentially not be paid for your time on the show. This is reminiscent to some of the people who show up for 90 Day Fiancé, where the American cast members are compensated for their time and for their appearance on the show, but their paramours who are from a different country are not paid. And so you have this type of, we'll call it economic freedom when it comes to some of the financing for the reality shows that you just don't have for union produced products. There's also a point where kids are protected through the union, not just as SAG members, but they also have certain laws that are in place to protect children and their finances from abusive adults, guardians, or parents who may take advantage of their financial opportunity by being on a show, a movie, a voiceover, whatever the case may be, a play, etc. And one of the laws that Sara had brought out was a law called Coogan's Law. And in Coogan's Law, she does an excellent explanation of it, so I won't go too deep into it. But essentially what it comes down to is this. There was a kid who was working with Charlie Chaplin. He had made millions of dollars. His parents basically blew the money. And by the time he was able to get to court, he got turned 21. He goes to court. He tries to get his money back from his parents, who had been running through his money like Grant through Richmond, just taking everything they could, everything that wasn't nailed down. By the time he got his money back, instead of him getting millions of dollars, he was getting like change or a small percentage of the money that he was due and owed. Now, even with Coogan's Law in place, there are child actors who have suffered throughout the years from this. And this is even as union represented actors. They have suffered through this. I'm like, come to mind, there was a kid, Gary Coleman, who worked with different strokes sitcom in the 70s and 80s. There was I think Ricky Schroeder, he went through the same thing. Like, if you update it, when you look to like Britney Spears, a lot of the things that happened to her, with her family coming after her money and taking control of a lot of her estate. So there's always going to be family members and people who are going to be looking to take advantage of your financial situation, especially when you're in a financially vulnerable position. In some cases, as my dad used to say, where there's a will, there's always a family member waiting to collect. So you have to be careful when you deal with these types of situations. Now, the funny thing is, when you're talking about reality shows, that in itself is historically a haven of mismanagement and mistreatment towards minors and kids on these productions. Reality shows in and of themselves pretty much operate on a shoestring or basically a bare bones budget, where you have productions companies that try to have minimal cost or minimal outlays to create these products for them to be able to put on to their channels or their networks, etc. So, for instance, when you're doing a reality show, the only thing you're paying for as far as a crew is maybe there's a camera guy, there's a sound guy, you might have somebody doing the lighting, and maybe you have some production costs as far as trying to organize places or locations for you to shoot. But in most cases, you're trying to shoot at the location of the people who you're filming. So you're filming in their houses, or you're filming at public spaces like parks, etc., etc. Those things don't cost anything except for maybe the cost of filing for a permit if you're filming in the extreme public. You maybe have to make some phone calls to coordinate with restaurants, movie theaters, etc., etc. There's also a point where you have a bigger majority of your money is actually going towards the editors, the people who are going to take this huge block of film and edit it down to make it a comprehensive story. Now, they don't really pay writers. They do have writers on who are on staff for some of these reality shows, if we're going to be honest, because they create storylines. But these are not writers as we would think about it in a normal traditional production, where you have somebody sitting down creating actual scripts for the performers or cast members to go through. Now, the closest thing to a script that we've seen in Sister Wives is most likely, in my opinion, and from my observation, is a lot of Cody's bigger speeches. The knife in the kidney speech and the sacred covenant. Those are things to me that Cody has rehearsed saying, and it comes off because he's a piss poor actor, or he's not trained, or he's not qualified, or he's not skilled, however you want to classify it. So when he did those productions or those presentations, they didn't come off genuine. They didn't come off naturally. Now, irregardless of what people think about actors, there is a certain skill level involved. It's not an easy job. This is why some people get paid millions of dollars to do it, because you have to be able to do it in such a way where it comes off natural. It has to come off believable. And a lot of what Cody and Robin present on screen, when you can tell when they're doing the whole like image rehabilitation program where they're trying to convince everybody we're different people now, we're not the same folks. When they're trying to do that, it's obvious that that's what they're trying to do. And because it's so transparent, they actually turn people against them and make themselves more unlikable. So you have that as one of the main drivers. Now, when we talk about it, the non-payment structure for cast members is one of the big things that Sara brought up when she talks about, like, especially the Sister Wives themselves, the main cast members, by saying that you're going to take your money and send it to a big group account. So you're going to get paid as a big whole group. You're going to be budgeted basically in as a big group, as one performer. And so they send it all to one account, and somehow that's going to be fair and equitable, is foolish. And I say it's foolish because just because you get along today doesn't mean you're going to get along tomorrow. And even when the family started to break down and break apart, of course, they have to make decisions as a family on how they're going to spend the money, what they're going to invest in, etc., etc., etc. But you should have your own contracts and your own agreement, because when you sit at the table across from TLC and they have you sign these contracts so that you can participate in the reality show, each adult is going to sign their name. And they are going to sign releases, not only for themselves, but they're going to sign releases for their children. Anybody who appears on a screen for a reality show has signed a release to the production company, so that way they won't be sued later on, or somebody can't come back and claim that they weren't compensated for their time on the show, etc., etc. You can sign up and do this for free if you want, because it's a non-union production. And they have people who sign up and do it for free. A lot of, I don't think Caleb and the son-in-laws, the people who married into the Brown family, I don't think they were getting paid. I don't think they've ever gotten a check from TLC. So you have people, even in this group, who don't get any checks. The kids don't get checks. Now, the crazy part about it is there's a long history from TLC, not only TLC, but we'll cite TLC, where they've had families on the show. And there has been complaints that the parents weren't sharing or splitting the money with the kids. So the kids were basically working for free. And this is rampant in a lot of these productions because they don't have the protections of the union on purpose. The production company would have to spend way more money if they actually had to pay everybody out who participated in the show. Then they would be spending way more money on the production of the show. For instance, when it's my understanding when Cody and the family were shooting Sister Wives, they get paid a percentage of the production costs for each episode. So they get paid per episode. Now, if you're a part of a union, you get paid for filming. There's a big damn difference. So if you shoot and you have people in your house and they're in your house for 12, 16 hours some days, shooting you during the course of this contract, if they were a part of a union, every time somebody they were booked to shoot, or if they had to block a certain amount of time out of their schedule so that they would be available to shoot, they would have to get paid. They'd have to get paid. And whether you use my cuts or not, I've been in movies where my parts in the movie or television show were a lot bigger than what they wound up using for the actual production. I'm not complaining about it because the check cleared. I'm not mad about it. And to be honest with you, in some cases, a lot of cases, most cases, when they did the cuts or they did the edits, it made perfect sense why they would cut certain things down or cut certain things out because of the direction that the scene that we shot would have taken the movie. Maybe it would have took it into a darker place, or it was too light, or it was too funny for certain things that were trying to be a little more serious, or whatever the case may be. So it makes sense. It's their project. They can do whatever they want. It's not my business. So I show up to do my work. I'm prepared to do my part. I show up prepared, do my part. I go home. They do whatever they want to do with what they shoot. In the Sister Wives situation, it's completely different. You need them to put you on screen because the more episodes you appear in, the bigger your check is going to be at the end of the season. So that is a big deal for them. And it's not necessarily fair because what happens? You take this large sum of money, you give it to the Brown family, and they're supposed to show up and do this. They shoot this thing 15, 16 hours a day, or you have the Goslings from K+8, or you have the other people 19 and counting, and you have these kids shooting long periods of time. You're invading their lives. You're putting them on screen. You're showing the mishaps and misadventures of their families, so they have to deal with the kids and the problems and issues that they have in their families. Everybody at school knows, all their friends know, etc., etc., etc. All their friends' parents know, etc., etc., etc. So they have to deal with that. And on top of that, they're not getting paid. Then they're not getting paid, and they have to put on a happy face, or no matter how many times they shoot this, I want to get this specific scene and I want it to go a certain way at this particular event. So I want these kids over here playing and I want to get a shot of them for B-roll. I want to get a shot of them over here talking and I want them to have a conversation. You guys try to act normal. And so you pushing these kids to do things, and you're pushing even adults to do certain things so that you can get the materials you need so you can make a cohesive storyline for your episode. Because at the end of the day, stories for television shows have to be neat, but life in and of itself is very messy. So you want to have a cohesive storyline, and then depending on what happens and how you filmed it, you could have a situation or argument where they say something on day 1 and then turn around on day 326, they say something else. But you take those two instances and you put them together, and that creates a cohesive storyline. See, this is the betrayal of this person. It makes it easier. So it's a lot simple. You can put a bow on it. Now, the kids aren't getting paid for that. The kids aren't getting paid. And you say, but James, the parents should look out for the kids. This is something Sara had brought up. But the truth of the matter is that if you look at just the Sister Wives, when the production team showed up to the Sister Wives, the Brown family, and they were trying to figure out whether they wanted to bring the Brown family in to possibly do a show with them, I think that initially it was between the Browns, it was between Joe Darger, and I think that it might have been between Brady from My Five Wives. Like, those families were all in the talks for potentially doing the Sister Wives show and becoming part of that franchise. The Browns obviously won. But when they showed up to each one of the houses, let's see, you show up to the Dargers, yeah, they're very attractive. The wives are very attractive. And, Joe Darger's not a bad-looking guy. He seems to be running a tight ship, but they're two together, right? They're not having arguments. They're not having the arguments that you need. They're not having a conflict because they're all able to cook in one kitchen. They're all able to exist in one house. They're putting forth a good representation of this particular issue, but there's no drama. There's no conflict, there's no issues. They're just trying to put the best foot forward, trying to show a day in the life. That doesn't sell tickets. That don't get butts in the seats. Then you go over to the Bradys. Okay, well, the Brady and his family, they seem to be working together. Everything, there's 5 of them, so it's going to be a lot of conflict, a little bit of jealousy, which there was some jealousy, but they were able to work through it, and they were able to maintain more of a facade than the Brown family. So you say, I don't know about them. You show up to Cody's house. Now, first thing, you show up to Cody's house, you look on the chart. I think Brady had more kids than Cody did. I think also Joe Darger, I believe he had more kids, even though he had fewer wives. You show up to Cody's house, 13 kids, or 12 kids, 1 kid on the way. This guy, he has 13 children. You pull into the driving space, he's got a convertible car. And you know that they're going through financial issues and they're having financial troubles. But this guy is sitting here with a convertible luxury car. And his wives, I remember, I don't want to holler the wife's name out because I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. But he had a wife who was driving around, like all the wives driving around on bologna skin and blow 'em up motors. Like anytime they driving down the street, they hit a rock the wrong way. Hell, they hit a pebble. All of a sudden, the motor will drop out the damn car. It was horrible. But there was a wife who was driving around and she had tape on her windows to hold her windows up. Okay, this guy's, he bad with money. He's selfish as hell. And then you go into the house and you start talking to him. You find out not only does he have a 2-seater car, but he's got a whole motorcycle. But he's got 12 kids. Then you talk to him a little more, you find out he has another baby on the way. Okay, well, they already under financial constraints. They got some financial issues and some financial problems. They really don't know what's going on. Doesn't seem to be that responsible. And then you find out that not only does he have one of his wives pregnant, his third wife is currently pregnant, but he's getting in his car, his luxury car, driving 5 hours away, 300 miles away, so that he can see his girlfriend, who has an additional 3 children. And you say to yourself, this dude is horrible with money. And it's going to be all kinds of drama when we watch this show. Because already you can tell that there's some jealousy in the air. And just naturally there's going to be some issues with this woman being full on pregnant and him jumping in his car driving 5 hours away to go see a younger woman. Of course it's going to be problems. But the fact is that when they showed up, it's obvious that they were going to have financial problems. It's obvious that they were going to have financial problems because they're bad with money. He's making bad investments. A 2-seater car and a motorcycle with 13 kids is a bad investment. Unless your bills are taken care of and your bills are paid. I pay my bills. My bills is paid. Shout out to Amy from 1,000 Pound Sisters. I pay my bills. My bills is paid. But when push comes down to shove, this is what you're faced with, and this is what they're dealing with. So they know, or at least have an inclination that they may be bad with money, because at some point that is going to be a storyline. It's the same thing. Real Housewives of wherever. When you look at it, how many times is the family going bankrupt? It's not by mistake that they put these people on the cast. That all of a sudden they're talking about how much money they make and they live these big fancy lifestyles, and within a year or 2 years they're totally broke and they're having to sell their house and file for bankruptcy and wind up in divorce court. Or the people say how much they in love and how beautiful their family is and how much they all into each other because they had a perfect family and a perfect life, and you find out the spouse who is not on the show is actually cheating like hell and they wind up getting divorced. It's not a mistake. They know full well. But they pretend that it's okay for them to take the money from the kids, keep that money for themselves, and whatever with the kids, the parents will take care of the kids. You know full on well these parents aren't taking care of the kids or setting money aside for the kids or paying the kids for their time or giving them consideration for the investment that they're putting into the show. You know full well because they're horrible with money. If you give them 2 nickels, they're going to spend 2 nickels and they're going to borrow another 3 dimes so that they can spend some more money. And that's what happens. So you have parents who are supposed to look out for their kids. There's also an issue where even on K+8, the Goslings, when John Gosling said, you know what, I'm done with the show, I'm going to leave the show, and he wanted to leave the show, one of the things that he wanted to do was stop his kids from filming. He didn't want his kids to be on the show anymore. And of course, at that time, because of the popularity of the show and as much money as they were making, the production company threw some money to Kate to be able to keep the kids so for the custody fight so they can maintain the show going. I think, in my personal assessment, that something like that was mirrored in the Sister Wives, where Cody had taken Dayton, Robin's oldest child, out ATV. And if you recall the accident where Dayton was injured, and his father, not big on the reality show to begin with, wanted to get custody of his kids and didn't want his kids, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna, shooting the show anymore. The truth of the matter is, you can't have a reality show about families and you can't film the family. And I think that this is one of the main reasons, or one of the bigger reasons, or a big reason as to why Cody was so pressed about taking custody of the Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna so that he could keep them on the show. I think that was part of the mix. I think that was part of the decision making when it came down to it. I think that TLC might have lent a little weight and a little power to the Browns so that they could put pressure on Robin's ex so that they could get custody of those kids so they can continue to film this very popular show. And that's just one of the things that happens during the course of the show. And as we talk about that, we also have to address some of the bigger costs and some of the bigger tolls that happen to the kids. Because it's not just about them losing money or investment or financial opportunities. It's also about what it costs the family. Anytime you're on a reality show, it's going to potentially ruin your family. Participation in these productions could potentially ruin your family. If as an actor, if I signed up and I started doing a Marvel movie, like they got rid of Jonathan, they got rid of Jonathan Majors playing Kang as like the big villain for the Marvel movies, and they said, hey, we need another guy to come in here and do Kang. James, you available? Shit, yeah, I'm available. I come down, I start shooting movies. That's an opportunity for me. My life has changed. My life is different. At the end of the day, no matter what I do on camera, no matter what character I play or how I present that particular character, when rubber meets road, I am going to still be me. That's a character I played on TV. That's not who I am. Christopher Walken, nice guy. Plays a scary, every movie he's ever been in, scary as hell. But nice guy. He's a nice guy. You know, it's just insane. Like, so when you play a character on screen, but then you get to go home and be who you are. When you're in a reality show, you're putting your life out there, and you're putting the things that occur in your life, your real life, on screen for other people to view and criticize. Now, when that happens, it's, bad enough that it happens to Cody, Christine, Mary Janelle, and Robin, and they get to have that discussion, but at least they're being compensated. When it comes to the kids, they're not being compensated. But they still have to deal with the pressures, anxiety, and everything that goes along with having your day-to-day life filmed. And that's one of the big problems. And again, there's not just the cost, but there's the toll that takes on not only who you are and how other people see you and how they define you, because a normal kid is going to have pressures to be a certain way or a certain thing. And outside pressures forcing them or trying to push them into doing a certain thing. But then you have people who don't necessarily know you or know your family and think that because they see you on TV, they understand everything that happens in your family and who your people are. They tell Robin's kids, oh, your mama ain't nothing. Why your mama breaking up families? Tell them give that family back. And so the kids have to deal with that. That can start to change, or it can start to affect the way that they see themselves, their self-esteem. There's a certain level of cost and there's a toll to being a part of these productions. And from my understanding, there are certain kids who are no longer agreeing to film with TLC. Logan, Leon, I think Gwendolyn, she had a falling out with them because they took a special event for her and turned it into an opportunity to film conflict between the other cast members. Cody and David, the first time they meet, it was at one of Gwendolyn's milestone events, and she's not happy about it. So she's not agreeing to film with TLC anymore. So there's an impact. Let me know what you guys think down below. That's my take. I'm James. This has been My Take on Reality, and I'm out.
Yeah.